Going live. Not quite. Sorry. Keep psyching you out.
It's like we are live on Facebook.
We are live. Well, we should be. I don't see it yet, but it might be.
Yeah. I see it on my side. It asked
Okay,
me.
good.
I said, okay, I see it.
Outstanding.
Johnny 5 is alive.
Yeah, here we go. All right. So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to episode 30 of the Igniting Financial Freedom podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. I have Jeremy Nicolaitis. He is from Golden Octopus. And I brought him on. We had an awesome conversation about a week ago as we were planning what time and day to come at you here live. And so he has quite a bit of experience in the creative, executive, and stereographer world. So he actually lives out in California and has been a part of Hollywood's biggest films over the last 10 years as a creative entrepreneur. So what he's able to do is really use the experience that he has and knowledge that he's gained to help other entrepreneurs and business owners really break through to that level of success that they're looking for and achieving a life of freedom. And so, Jeremy, welcome.
Thank you. So good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, certainly. And so, what part of California again?
I'm in Redondo Beach, some South LA.
Yeah, awesome. Hot weather,
Yeah.
right? But not too bad.
Not too bad where I am. It's probably 69 to 71 almost every day of the year. So
yeah, a little bit different than the 10 to 15 degrees that I get up in Michigan in the winter, right?
Oh yeah, a bit different. Yeah, I wear sandals all year. I have tan lines on
That's
my feet year round.
Yeah, I could probably get used to that. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's nice. It's like when it gets really cold, you're still wearing sandals, right? You might put on pants and a sweatshirt, but like the sandals are always there. I tell people I'm getting dressed up. Like if I'm wearing tennis shoes, I dressed up for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. How nice of you.
Yeah. It's nice because even in Hollywood, right? Like Hollywood is very business casual. So you can be in this like high level executive position and dress very nicely, but you can also have like super sweet tennis shoes on, right?
Yeah.
So it helps.
That's cool. I could get into that vibe. That is cool. That is true. Actually, that's one thing I don't miss about, I was in banking and personal finance and I mean, I wore a suit every day for 12 years.
Yeah.
And I do not miss that. I've worn a suit once, for a wedding I went to.
Right. Weddings. That's when you put suits on, right?
Or maybe another one for a funeral, I think. But like other than that, I don't miss it for a second. You know what I mean? And it's like, I guess too, like just with my business and the vibe that I'm kind of maybe going for with people, like I don't want it to be, 3-piece suit, like stuffy, sitting in an office talking about, all that kind of stuff. Like I want it to be just me, you know what I mean? Just like a guy talking to you about, hopefully helping you with your money and getting towards things you want to accomplish with your goals and stuff like that. And so I don't want it to be that what it used to be for me,
Yeah. Well, it's important, right? It's important to live the way we want to live, right? And we want to and attract the people that accept, like there's enough people in the world, right? That we can attract the people that love us for who we are. Because I'm the same way. Like if you don't want to talk to me, I'm probably going to be wearing a t-shirt and I'm going to be wearing sandals. Like I could still dress nice, I can look good, but again, like I'm not going to be that guy either. And there's nothing wrong with the guy who wants to wear a suit. That's just not me. And that man or woman that dresses that way is going to attract a certain type of people into their sphere that relates to them, and that's cool. And there's enough of us to go around that I think it's time we all just be free to live and be who we want to be.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. And I think too, like the last year and a half has probably woken a lot of us up into like, I wonder how many of us on our Zoom calls were wearing a nice shirt and maybe just pants or lack thereof, maybe nothing.
I was about to say guilty until you went to lack of pants, right? Like I'm definitely wearing pants or shorts. I'm wearing shorts right now, but I have more than once put on a just pretended from the waist up and made myself look presentable in that way. I'll quickly throw on a button down shirt over my t-shirt if I need to, but it's, it's business on top and party on the bottom.
That's right. Well, speaking of that, tell me about for those of you watching, you can see his shirt. For those of you listening on the podcast, we can't see. It's called, his business is Golden Octopus. And so I told him I'd ask him on the air what that means, and I'm sure there's a story behind it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so Golden Octopillar as a business, I help entrepreneurs and business owners get to that next level of success, whatever they're trying to do, trying to grow, trying to pivot, trying to build, but while also living a life of freedom, right? That's something we've also learned from COVID, is that we don't, that the traditional business model is broken, and we don't have to live this way, right? I think so many of us, we go to school, right? And we go from K to 12 and we do these levels, right? And then we're taught hey, you get a job and you climb this ladder and you go step by step by step. So this idea of this incremental steps, right, is something that we all have to get rid of, and we have to break that mindset. But then also for the business owners and the entrepreneurs to take this idea of that I have to have a job, I have to work this way, I have to grind it out, right? If I'm not working 50, 60 hours in my business a week, then I'm a slacker. Right. But that comes from a different type of world, right? That 9 to 5, 40-hour week structure was created by Henry Ford to fill his factory with workers, right? That's a different time. And then we start our own business to have freedom and to make more money and to have success. But then we bring this mindset of the job into our business. Why not just get a job? If you want a job, right? You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. So that's what I help business owners and entrepreneurs in that way. But more to your point, Golden Octopillar is the one word our oldest son that he was saying incorrectly, that we didn't correct him, right? So he's almost 6 now, but at the time he was, I know this was probably 3. He was 3.
Yeah.
And I love octopus. And so we have this big giant octopus stuffed animal.
Yeah.
And I think at the time we were also reading The Very Hungry Caterpillar, right? Yeah. And so for whatever reason in his brain, from this moment in time, the tentacles became caterpillars, right? And so it was Octopillar. And I'm baby, to my wife, baby, this is way too cute. Let's just not correct them on this one, knowing that eventually it's going to go away. And it has. I love it. At the time I was I'm going to buy this domain and one day I'm going to use it. And so when my consulting business got to the point where I needed a proper business entity, and I was we're talking about finance here, you want to have a certain entity so that you pay the least amount of taxes, right? All by the tax code. I mean, you gotta use the tax code as your guide to pay. They're telling you how to pay less taxes, right? And so you do those things and you get to keep more of your money, right? So when it came time, I was okay, I'm gonna use Octopillar, and but I wanted to spice it up a little bit. So I started thinking about rare gems and stones and metals, and then it was Golden Octopillar. It just has a nice ring to it. And since then people are oh, go Octa's 8, that's infinity, it's abundance, and pillars, it's the pillars of success. And golden, it's anytime gold, anytime wealth is mentioned in the Bible, it's represented with gold. And it's all these things that it all just has to do with my little 3-year-old boy saying Octopillar, and it's too cute, and I had to keep it. That's
really funny. I mean, the symbol, you could say maybe there's, if you want it to mean that, sure, the symbolism, you can have it mean whatever you want. But no, for me, it's just something cute my kid said.
That's what it is, man. And I love it. I love it so much.
Funny.
And it's a topic of conversation. People ask me about it. I'm always like I said, I like to wear t-shirts, and I got tired of wearing other people's logo on my chest. So I just started wearing, you can get t-shirts made fairly inexpensively. So I was just I can make my own shirt and pay less than if I went to the store and bought some other shirt. And so it comes up a lot, especially in social media. Who's the Golden Octopillar? What is that? The Golden Octopillar? What? And so you get more link clicks and whatnot. But it just has to do.
It's a good conversation starter for sure.
Yeah.
My little guy is 4. My number 3 of 3, and my youngest, and he would say, well, he still says this one. So we had on St. Patty's Day, my wife put these little tiny footprints around some part of our counter or somewhere. And he's like, Dad, look at these front pins. And I'm I didn't correct him for a while. I love that word. So I just throw it out there every so often. Dave, what did we see on St. Patty's Day? The front pins. I'm okay. And then he'll say, Dad, come on. I need you to come with me. Both of we need to see this. And I'm both of we. All right. So those two stick out, both of we. And I say it now, and he corrects himself now. He's no, Dad, it's both of us. And I'm no, it will forever be both of we,
Right. Yeah.
Little stuff like that. Right.
I love it. There's so many of them. It's so awesome.
So Jeremy, if you don't mind, I'd love to kind of hear your a little bit of a backstory, if you will, on kind of how you came to this point, just with
Yeah,
your business and maybe some trials you had with your own finances and kind of
absolutely.
that story. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, I'm, third generation film industry in my family, right?
Yeah.
So I grew up thinking I was never going to work in the film business because
Right.
that's like everybody else is like, I'm just not going to do it. But they sucked me in. I was out of work, illustrator in 2002. And my dad introduced me to a visual effects producer
Yeah.
who got me a job in the film business. And I took a job because I needed money and I had to pay the bills. It was time. I had been out of work long enough and I was trying to get a job as an illustrator, but I hadn't been doing it long enough. And I was struggling and I just didn't know what I didn't know. Like at that time, 2002 for me, I'm in my early 20s, I guess, at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And and so I took this job because I needed money. But I loved it. The first job they were working on was Sesame Street 4D for Universal Studios Osaka. So it was a ride film.
Mm-hmm.
And what I thought was so cool was the 3D films where you put on the glasses and the stuff's
Yeah.
coming off the screen. And I was like, oh my God, people do this for a living. This is so cool. And so then I did everything I could to learn as quickly as possible, to grow within the company as quickly as possible. And I just took on bigger and bigger challenge. I climbed the ladder, right? Like I was totally climbing the ladder.
Yeah.
And so I did that. And so sure enough, it didn't take long. It was a few years that I would get into a supervisor role. So you said stereoscopic earlier. So for people that don't know, that just means 3D. Like we see stereoscopically because we have two eyes. So we have a stereo pair of eyes, and that allows us to see depth. And so with 3D, you create two images and it's really an illusion because you're sending a different image into each eye. So I got really good at it, started winning awards, and was working at that time. It was all IMAX films and ride films for the theme parks. But then Avatar comes out and How to Train Your Dragon and these big 3D films.
Mm-hmm.
And so these guys just started telling everybody like, hey, everything's got to be in 3D. And the studios like just ate it up. And they're like, yeah, we get to charge more money. And, but there was like this value is this interesting thing where it's the only thing you can do to a movie where it costs a certain amount of money and your ROI, right? Like, because when you go to the movie theater, you can either buy a 2D ticket or a 3D ticket, and there's a price difference. So now for them and their accounting and their finances, they say, okay, we make this much money from the 3D and this is how much we spent. Right. And so at the time, everybody was just killing it in the 3D world, making a ton of money. And so what happened for me is my worth, like my street value, if you will, like exploded overnight. Yeah. And because everybody wanted to do 3D, but I was one of the few people that had already been doing it for almost 10 years by the time this happened. And so I started consulting. So I started my side hustle, right? I started doing stuff on the side. I started consulting. I started doing little projects. I started getting teams of artists together to do little projects here and there. And one particular consulting job led to this global creative director position at this one company. And we grew that company from 50 people in LA to 3,500 people worldwide. And so it was LA, Vancouver, London, and Mumbai. And we did it in like 18 months. It was bananas, right? and because I had because there was this explosive growth, because all of a sudden I had this demand, I hired an agent. I got an agent to negotiate my contracts and to help me and to like take care of me on the financial side, right? And make sure that I wasn't taken advantage of, because it was like all of a sudden it was the wild, wild west, right? And it was like there's no rules and people are going crazy. And so it was like, whoa, like I need some representation. And so she got me this killer deal. Like I had this massive 6-figure salary. Like I was netting a very healthy 6 figures in this.
Yeah.
She also had it in there where I would, they had to fly me first class, right? Like if I was flying out of the country or if I had to fly anywhere and work on that same day, that I had to fly first class, right? So I get it. Like first class business is like, there's a lot of like, oh, it's so cool in the front of the plane, but like really like I needed to sit up front and I needed a seat that laid down so I could sleep, so I can get off this plane and do business, right?
Yeah.
They flew me from LA. I flew to London for a 45-minute meeting with the Harry Potter director and the producers, right? So I get on this plane, I fly all the way out to London, go outside of London, go to the set, right? I'm like hanging out on like Hogwarts and Diagon Alley. And, I don't even remember the sets specifically, but like people are in character, just like eating lunch, it's a cool thing. But what ended up happening for me, and I say all this stuff because I just want people to know the cool factor was there. The money was there. And most people would think like, this dude has a dream job, right? Like this is where it's at. But once the expansion settled down, and like I started to get a little bit of my time back, because my time was gone. Like I was working, 16, 18 hours a day, 6-7 days a week, flying from one city to the next. I was so unhealthy. It was bad. Like, I never saw the sunlight. I was locked in a theater, all the time. But anyways, there was no fulfillment, right? Like I felt like something was missing, and I didn't know why I was giving up my life for this job, like this very cool job where I was being taken care of. Like the company was great, like no complaints on the professional side, but just internally something was eating at me. Sure. And so one day, the CEO calls me in and he's like, hey, so we're going to close down the LA office. And, they offered me to relocate to Vancouver. And I said, I turned it down. I walked away. I didn't want to do it. I was very nervous about it. I was walking away from a massive salary, right? Like I was like living it up as I was a bachelor still at that point. Like living in a high-rise apartment, overlooking Venice and the ocean and all this stuff. And I was walking away from that, but I just, I couldn't do it anymore, And so I had this period of time where I could reflect and just do the things I wanted to do. I still had money coming in. I still had some passive stuff coming in. I still had some consulting stuff going on. So I had some money coming in. Obviously I had money in the bank. And so it just gave me an opportunity to just see how I would spend my days. Like, what did I want to do? Like, there was no demand, like just giving myself that opportunity that most people don't have. Right. And so I just went in deep, into my photography. I'd always been taking photos for years. I always had a camera with me. It's such a big part of the film business is like understanding the image on screen. It started out as like just a tool, but then it was, no, this is like, I love this. I love photography and whatnot. And I found myself in beautiful places taking these pictures. And so like, I'm going to embrace my landscape photography here. And so I thought like, how am I going to do this? I'm looking online and people are selling their photographs for peanuts, right? And everybody just like, nobody cares about the quality of an image because now at this point, everybody's got a camera in their pocket. Right. Yep. And so I was like, I started looking into other businesses and how they did it. And, after seeing what like the big time professionals were doing, I was like, okay, essentially I need to create a print shop and a framing store. Like I need a print business and a frame business. And that's how I could do it. So I ended up buying a print and marketing business with the idea that print and marketing business would be a large percentage of it would be passive, right? And I'd have this passive income, but then I would be able to do what I love to do. And the two businesses would help each other, right? So I'd be able to create my products and distribute my products through the print and marketing business. And the other thing about this business was that it was kind of a turnaround, right? So when I bought it, the owner was ready to retire. He was getting lazy. He didn't really he was done. And when a lot of times when people decide to sell a business, they stop putting in all the effort and they just kind of let it dip and they let it drag down. And I thought, well, I just helped build this company to 3,500 people worldwide. I could turn around a little mom and pop print and marketing business, right? Yeah. And so I get in there and boy, let me tell you, the things I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. Yeah. Like
a little humble pie then, huh?
Oh man, it was served up on a gold platter.
Yeah, I bet.
But it was, it became one of the most challenging times of my life. Yeah. I also, and right before I took over the business, I got married. Like we got back from our honeymoon. Like I met my wife through all this. We come back from our honeymoon. We take over this business, and I thought, okay, it'll take me about 6 weeks to kind of just get this business just being more efficient, right? I can turn it around. I just get like the workflow and that part done, like the operations of it, and that in 4 months time, I'll be able to build the revenue up to match what I needed and what I was making before. Cause I wasn't trying to level down my income, right? I was trying to go up. And so I thought about 4 months I could do it. Anybody listening to this, 4 months of anything is not enough time. It always takes longer. Let me just throw that out right now. Yeah. It took over a year, right? It took over a year. We ran out of money. We filled up the credit cards and maxed them all out. I borrowed money from the bank. I borrowed money from the family. I mean, we got to the point we had no idea how we were going to pay rent at the beginning of the month. And it was literally like each month we were like, oh man, I'm so glad that that project came in. We just got lucky. Like, how are we going to do that? And just moving it around. And it was really, really, really painful. You know, but look, I turned around. It came around. Like I started listening to podcasts, right? Like this. I started listening. Yeah. I was like just looking for clues on how to turn this business around and like save us, right? Like we were contemplating bankruptcy. I had this thing where like I just coined one day in my social media and it just came out and then I stuck. It's kind of silly. But I had my fetal 15. And it was the 15 minutes every morning curled up in the fetal position, not wanting to get out of bed. And it was like, I just remember like, I wish I could quit. I wish I could call in sick. I wish I could just like lock the doors and walk away. But you get to the point you can't stop and you have to keep going. And so, you know, splash some water on your face and slap yourself around and get out the front door and get busy. But it was
were the podcasts like were those like a source of motivation, or were there coaches or books or kind of thought leaders, if you will, that you tapped into that kind of, was that one of the pieces that propelled you forward, or was it just kind of
huge piece? No,
grit?
It was that was the tip of the spear, really. That was like just like it getting started. So the podcast, absolutely. I was starting to listen to like these, right? You're like listening to other people and to their experiences and what did they do? How did they do something different? How did they get out of something? What's something I didn't know? And then it led to coaching, right? So like one particular podcast led to a coaching program, which then led to, they had a mastermind. That sequence of events right there was the turning point. That gave me the mindset, because I didn't even have the mindset. Like I didn't even know how successful people and millionaires and people like that think, right? Like there's a different mindset on how you do things. And then how to run the business and how can I get it to be passive? That was the goal, right? And so that happened. So over the course of 18 months, I was able to get that business to be passive, right? I got it to 80% passive, right? And so it still took 20% of my time. But with all that extra time, I was able to start consulting again. And I went out and produced a couple of films. At the time, it was first it was Point Break 3D, the remake of Point Break. I produced the 3D on that. And then that led to the same studio led to Blade Runner 2049. And so I did those two films back to back. I started consulting for a technology company, right, that wanted to get into the film business. And I still had the print and marketing business going on the side. So it led to multiple streams of revenue, which then changed everything, right? From there, it's been like.
So I can imagine. Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I can imagine the stress level, right? When you're at the point of like, maybe we should file bankruptcy. Maybe this is our best option. To then now, or even sounds like even within a few years ago, to that multiple streams of income. Your stress level and your anxiety and just your outlook overall, right?
Yeah. Now it's like, that was the best thing that ever happened to me, right? Like it changed my life for the better. Like the lessons I learned now, my kids will know these things. My grandchildren will know these things. There's things in like this, there's fundamental knowledge that you should just have coming out of high school that they don't teach you. Like nobody teaches you how to make money. Nobody teaches you how to protect your money, and they don't teach you how to grow your money. Right. And like, why not? Why do they just want us all to be like living like on debt and like borrowing money, and so that they can make money on our money? Like, what do we do? Like we make money, and what do they tell us to do? They tell us to put it into a savings account, put it into the bank, like put it into a fractional reserve bank, right? That only has to maintain a fraction of your money, right? So that they can make money on your money. Like they make money on your money like 9 times before you could make money on your money. Like that's crazy, right? Anyways, you're getting me all worked up here.
That's good. No, I used to work in banking, so I
am I right? Like,
I know all
right?
too
Like,
well how that works, man. Yeah.
as soon as I said fractional reserve, you started smiling.
I
You're like,
smile because I
oh,
know exactly
yep.
what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we gotta put our money in the right place. We have to protect it. Right. That's the whole thing about like those people, like we talk about like side hustles, like people have a day job, they have a side hustle. Maybe that side hustle produces a little bit of money, but maybe they can also file a business entity so that they can run some more money through that so they can start protecting that money more, right? Like the idea, of being, and I don't want somebody to be, it's a Robert Kiyosaki, right? Like he's got his quadrants, right? Of like employee, self-employed, business owner, and investor. Like the employee and the self-employed, like you don't want to be those. The idea like in life is to get to the other side. You want to be a business owner and an investor. Like that's the goal. We need to change the direction and the goals that we want. And I think for me, that was a big thing, right? Instead of the idea that I need to have some kind of retirement plan, it's always climb this some invisible ladder and have a retirement plan, right? Like, which are good things and it's things that help people. But really for me, it's how do I get to passive income? My goal is not to how do I get to, 65 and 70 and finally be able to enjoy my life and make some money on some retirement plan. My goal is like in the next 10 years to get my passive income to beat my expenses. Right. And I think if people focus on that and think about that, they can get to a life of freedom much faster than giving their life away for 50 years for hopes of 10 years of freedom at the end.
Yeah. And if you ask, because I've listened to Robert Kiyosaki for long enough, right? If you ask him, or if you listen to just one of his podcasts, he would say you're better off investing money in a business or being a, let's say a part owner of a business or investing in real estate than just socking your money away in a 401k.
Yeah.
And it's actually perceived as, in his mind, less risky than just staying the course, working for a company and just kind of keeping your head down, because you're putting your entire livelihood at the mercy of somebody else, at the mercy of another corporation, rather than seizing your own destiny. And yes, charging forward unto the unknown. I know there's more fear associated with that for sure, but less unknown in my eyes, because I'm in control, so to speak, of what I can control, right? And that's trying to build a business and trying to invest in things that I can wrap my head around in terms of creating that wealth and creating those streams of income. And so, for somebody, you mentioned side hustles, right? I know I have some listeners and some coaching clients that are doing just that. So maybe if you can speak to someone like that who's still got a 9 to 5 and is trying to kind of scrape together and either, I wouldn't call it a side hustle necessarily, but, let's say driving for Uber, and trying to get some extra money. And that might just be a second job, if you will, or maybe they have a network marketing business that they're trying to build, what would you say to somebody like that, maybe from just a business standpoint? And I think knowing too, like that their goals are probably aligned with yours. And it's like trying to create something for yourself, trying to, pass that wealth to your family,
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, it's like, okay, let's start with the end in mind, right? Like we know we got to start with the end in mind. Where are we going? What's the point of this? Like, why is it a side hustle where we're creating like a photography business, right? And we're taking pictures on the side or doing weddings or something? Is it driving for Uber? What are you doing and why do you need that money, right? Because we know we want to, as quickly as possible, we want to stop exchanging our time for money, right? Our time is the most valuable thing we have, right? We will never get it back. This time I'm spending with you right now, I will never get it back, right? Where if I lose all my money, I buy a business and lose all my money, I could get it all back. I got it all back, right? So what are you doing with your time? Like for me, this time with you right now is so valuable, right? Because we are sharing something with somebody else, right? So you and I are having a great conversation, but I'm hoping that there's a ripple from this conversation that helps people. I dig that, right? Like that's a good return on my time. But so what are they doing and why are they doing it, right? And so for me, like if I think about, getting out of this hole where I just needed money, it was great that I got to a business where it got it to passive, got the multiple streams of revenue, but now I had 6 figures in debt, right? Like I needed to get that debt down. Not so much that I was concerned about debt. I think we have to be careful about our thought process, again, our mindset, right? Like you were saying, people, it's like, it's scary not to not go the route of the 9 to 5, invest in a 401k, right? It's scary, but it's scary because the banks and the investors have marketed fear to us, right? That all their messaging is like, oh boy, like you don't want to be, up poop creek without a paddle when you're 65 and 70, right? And like they're freaking you out. And so now it's embedded in your brain, right? But I agree, like that might be more risky than starting your own business, investing in yourself, right? So we have to be careful of what we're doing. So if we're driving for Uber or if we're starting our own business, what are we doing with that money? Is it to pay off debt, right? So for me, I didn't need to pay off. I wasn't worried about the 6 figures in debt. It was the payments that I had to make every month, right? That's what I had to focus on and get down. I had to just like, it was my cash flow, right? Like it's all about cash flow for us. And like, that's the goal. It's like how much is coming in and how much is going out. And so much money was going out to pay for yesterday. That was the problem, right? And so I worked my tail off, or I traded more of my time than I would like to buy my time back, right? So that's kind of like the first thing, right? So it's like, if you gotta like, if maybe people just like to drive Ubers and Lyfts, and they like the conversation, they like driving, it makes them feel good. Like to each his own, right? But if they're just doing it for money, why are they doing it for the money? Is it to pay the bills? Is it to save their money so they can buy something that doesn't make their money? Well, I'd say like, don't do that, right? Like if you're going to take that money, invest it in yourself or invest it in something that's going to create a return, right? And most likely in the beginning, it's going to be to invest in yourself, right? Like I said, the podcast, the coaching, the masterminds, I've never stopped. I'm in a massive inner circle right now, like a super high level entrepreneur mastermind. And it's amazing, right? And it's making me better.
That is and that's why I asked that, because one thing I've noticed a difference for me too is being able to tap into like-minded individuals and thought leaders and leaders in particular in the coaching and online business space. For me, it's done a world of good for my wife and her business. And being mindful of the messages that you hear and mindful of the people you surround yourself with, right?
I mean, look, I love my friends and family. I love them. Majority of them can't relate to me at all on this stuff, right? They just can't. And it's cool. Like it's no problem. But so if I talk to them about everything that I'm doing with my money, right, or with my business, they're going to be worried about me because they've been sold all these other ideas and this mindset, right? They've been sold this. And so it's not like they're being mean and they're going to be like, Jeremy, don't do this. Like, what are you doing? Like, oh my God, that's crazy. It's because they're fearful for me. They want to protect me and they want to protect you. So they're going to tell you things that go against what you're trying to do. So what do? We put ourselves in groups and we pay money, right, to be surrounded with people that are, and my goal is always just like have people a little bit higher than me, right? Like
of course.
The people on this mastermind, this inner circle I'm in, these guys make like 7 figures a month. Like they just crush it. We had a meeting the other morning. We meet every other Monday on Zoom, and somebody was upset. They were disappointed because they only did 300K last week. I'm just like,
last week,
like, oh yeah, rough life, but you put yourself in that circle because then it raises you up, right? And you got and
I love that. Yeah, like I mean, I've listened to other podcasts and Brooke Castillo is one, and she's a life coach, and she's talks a lot about just your mental game and the thoughts that go in your head. And but she also has said something to the effect of you need different people for different things. You can't expect your spouse to be all of the above, whether it's your your business kind of like my wife and I have our own businesses, so we bounce a lot of ideas off each other, so we have that with each other. But not every relationship is like that. Or you can't expect your friends to align with you, whether it's from a motivational standpoint or a spiritual standpoint or a cheerleading, rah-rah type person. And it might just be a different dynamic with every person. And I've had, people say to me like, oh, wow, we started another business here in our town. And it's like, somebody said like, you're doing that. You're doing another one of those. Like, really? Like, so like
another one of those. Right?
That's not a person that I necessarily share all of my, and entrepreneurial aspirations with, like I might with you, you know what I mean? Because it's just, I share different things with that person, and we have a great relationship, and it's different. And so that kind of
they'll get it eventually, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, sooner than later, right? Hopefully.
Yeah.
So that lends to like,
because they're watching, right? They're paying attention, right?
Yeah.
And so we don't let those people bring us down. We just show those people, right? We're going to quietly show them, and we're going to be good examples for these people. And then when it's time, right? Because we're not going to hold it against them. At some point, they may come back to us and be like, "Wow, man, how'd you do that? How'd you know how to do that? Like, can you help me?" And at that point, we help them.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that leads to, like I said, being mindful of who you surround yourself with, but also just the messages that you hear, because it's so easy to fall prey to that, either that overwhelm or that discouragement, or, I mean, for me, maybe just speaking for myself, but that's why it's just as important for those masterminds and those coaches and those whoever you want to surround yourself with, because it's the motivation is needed for me, at least, repeatedly, constantly. Zig Ziglar says motivation is like bathing. It's needed daily. And so you need it as much as you can get, One thing I wanted to ask you about, just the film industry, from your experience, and I know you may not be quite as tapped into it as you might have been before, but what are your thoughts on this whole movement of like movies now coming out in the theater and also coming out, obviously I think COVID did that, but coming out just like a stream, like on Disney Plus and also in the theater? I'm just curious.
For me, I think it's actually it's a bit of a sore subject. It's something, when I was on last year, I did Godzilla vs. Kong and Dune. And Warner Brothers, who was doing the bulk of the distribution, decided that that's what they were going to do with those films, right? And so you have people that are relying on that revenue from the theaters. Right. You have people that it's part of their deal. To be on that. And like for Dune,
for Black Widow, right? She just sued. She sued Disney?
I saw a headline. I was wondering if it was the same thing. I worked on that one for a little bit last year as well. But so let's take Dune for an example. So, and me coming from a creative side, Dune, Denis Villeneuve, the director, he created this amazing film. It hasn't come out yet. Anybody listening, you guys should go watch Dune, and I'm going to tell you exactly how to go watch it right now, because he shot that thing, a lot of it with IMAX cameras, with 4 IMAX, like Christopher Nolan, same thing. He'll shoot for IMAX. So the premiere version of Dune is for the mega IMAX screen, like big. And I'm not talking about the smaller kind of faux max, like it's just a little bit bigger. The aspect ratio of the film, the actual framing of the film is different. So it was created for you to see it a certain way. And now they're saying, hey, you know what? We want more people to buy memberships, right? Like, what did I have to sign up for? We had to watch Boss Baby, right? The new Boss Baby movie came out, right? I got to watch the new Boss Baby.
So, Paramount Plus, I think, right? Or something.
This one was Universal or
NBC.
It's Peacock. It's Peacock, right? And so like now we have that membership, right? We got Paramount when it was Sonic, when Sonic came out.
Oh, right.
And so some of this during this COVID time, and obviously like finances are very challenging during this time, and the theaters were all closed, but sometimes they're just lobbing these films into the streaming to get us to get memberships to pay them monthly, right? And then and it's a more of a long-term game, but there are a lot of people that are suffering financially because of that decision, right? And then creatively too, like I love watching movies at home, but I love going into a movie theater, right? There's an experience. And I would be very sad
if that ever goes away. And just for the record, I am going to see Dune, but I will be reading the book first, because that's what I try to do is I got to read the book first, and it's kind of bittersweet, because I read the book and then you formulate what it looks like in your own mind, right? In your own imagination. And then, it's kind of almost spoiled, because then it's written for you and the visuals are there for you, but even still, that's part of it.
Well, Denis is that book played a very important role in his life. He loves the book since he was a child. Like, he was very respectful. This movie is really good. It's really good. I think the Dune fans and those who've read the book, I think they're really going to enjoy it.
Yeah. Oh,
and if that wasn't true, I just wouldn't talk about it. I wouldn't say that a movie's bad. I wouldn't lie.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Well, I know you mentioned you were working on something kind of like almost like retrospective of what we've learned over the last year and a half, almost as some takeaways, if you will,
Yeah.
particularly with the maybe the entrepreneurial lens or the business owner lens, if you can maybe speak to that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I put a piece together and it kind of came out of having a lot of conversations, right? Like I'll go on podcasts, I'll talk to people and have conversations like this. And I started to see like really what COVID has done. Basically almost like some positive things that have come out of COVID, right? Like COVID has been terrible. Like people have died, people have suffered, people's businesses have suffered financially. Like it's been a really tough time. But there's some things that came to light because of what COVID, how it made us change our lives for a period of time, and some things
Yeah.
that I don't want to go back to. Right. And so I started sharing these things and putting it together. I'm like, you know what? I'm actually just going to put like one piece of content together that kind of wraps this all up so
Yeah.
people can check it out. Right.
Yeah.
And so I was trying, my goal was to make a 20-minute video. And I think it ended up being 45 minutes, 50 minutes. Just yesterday I put it onto a web page, and you can't even get to like linking from my main page right now. But anyways, it's like, so the benefits of COVID. So like one of the things, and I think I mentioned it earlier, was that the modern day like work, it's not even modern day, like the way our work model, like how we model our work days and our business, and of like the idea of the 9 to 5, like we've talked about that, like that model is broken and outdated, right? That was used by Henry Ford to fill factories, in 1920 something when that first happened.
And that's the measuring stick that corporate America has been holding us to forever.
Yeah.
For 100 years at least,
for 100 years, right? And so my problem is, so like a lot of people, we realize this, okay, and businesses have seen that their employees are more productive at home, and you don't have to like do business this way. Now we can actually change the way we do business.
Yeah.
But what I'm like you said, I focus in on the entrepreneurs and the business owners. Why do we bring that life into our businesses? Right? It doesn't make any sense. Like, why are we gonna like recreate this 9 to 5 or 9 to 9, right? Like, why are we going to force ourselves to work 50 hours for 50 years, right? Like, and we have full control. We own the business. Like we can do whatever we want, and we choose to do that. And it's broken. I think it's just a mindset. So that's like one of the things I talk about. Another thing is our lifestyles, right? Like the way we live, and it's all part of that. But like our mental health, like really like bubbled up during this time. And how we treat ourselves and take care of ourselves, right? Like this year, I started meditating. It was one of the things like I always kind of thought about in the back of my mind, and I didn't really get it, and people talked about it. And so I started meditating, and I started journaling, and I started making sure that I exercise every day. It was like I did these 3 things, and it just like totally changed my life and changed my energy and the way I feel and like my happiness, right? And so I get into kind of those things. If people want to check it out, they can check it out. It's if you go to goldenoctopillar.com/no-more.
I'll write it down.
No more with a dash.
Put it in the show notes too.
Yeah, thank you.
goldenoctopillar.com/no KNOW.
No, just NO, like no more.
Oh, no more. Okay.
No more. Like I'm not going to do this anymore. These are positive things that we've seen, right? That we can live our lives differently. And and there's no catch to it. It's just there for people to watch. You don't have to put in an email. You don't have to put in your name. Like I won't even know you're there. Like just check it out. And of course, like I present like another offer, right? Like there's like I talk about other things if people want to move forward. But like
sure.
It's just one of those things that I want to share, and I think people should hear it.
That's good. So tell me a little bit about maybe a client that what your maybe your ideal client, or they say your avatar, if you will. Like, who is it that you're trying to serve, and maybe what's kind of their biggest pain point at the moment?
Well, it's like it kind of relates to lifestyle, 100%, like mindset and lifestyle. So I'm looking for those that are burnt out, that are trading too much of their time, that are overworking, that they feel shackled to their business, or shackled to their desk, and they just want more of their time back. But then they also want, because we all want to make more money. Like I get it, we all want more money. So that's just like tied to it. So like a lot of my copy and my marketing might be like, hey, like I can help you succeed. I can help you get to that next level. Sure. But really what's most important for me is your life, right? The way you live your life. And so I kind of lure people in with the money, but like help them live a life of freedom so that they can make more and they could work less, right? Because it
Yeah.
is possible to do that.
It's great.
And you just got to figure out the ways to do it, right? And like we're talking about the person starting out and do the side hustles. It's different for everybody, right? And so it's not like you're going to do X, Y, and Z and 1, 2, 3. Like we need to sit down and like look at what you're doing and how you're doing it and evaluate and come up with like a custom plan for you. So
yeah, you know what I found since I left the corporate world, and particularly over this summer, last couple months, while my kids have been home, so my wife and I have basically been trading off days, or we'll do like a half day each for a few days a week. And so I'm basically trying to cram's not the right word, but I'm basically trying to fit in as best I can a basic work week into about 15 hours.
Yeah.
And very quickly, stuff that didn't matter just disappears and doesn't get done. And stuff like this, where I'm able to, talk with somebody and promote both of our messages, right?
Mm-hmm.
And either reach out to clients or, again, that cream rises, and it's about being efficient with the time that I've given, and so it's that principle of like, we're going to widen ourselves enough to where the space of whatever we're given. I was at a conference the other day, and a few people didn't show up after the first day, and everybody just kind of spread, they were told to go back to their seats on day 2. And about 90% of the people showed up. But what did those remaining 90% do? Just kind of moved out and spread out to the however many seats and tables were available. It's just a natural tendency, right? We waste the time, we spend the time unwisely because that's the time that we're given. And if we have the 40 hours, it'd be hard pressed to find somebody who couldn't probably fit that into a half or maybe, 3/4 of that same time frame.
Yeah. Last year, I did so much last year. I had the best year that I had in a long time. And there's no way I could have done all that work if I had to commute, if I was like going to offices and moving and going to in-person meetings and lunches. I did more than I'd ever done in a year. And I did it in 5 to 6 hours a day. I wasn't even working full time.
Yeah. Right? That's about where I'm at. Yeah. It's amazing. And it's just amazing when your hand is forced and your schedule just doesn't allow it, and you still want to meet goals that you've set for yourself. What you're forced to do, in a very good way. So that's great. Yeah. So where do you see yourself business wise, or just with your own personal growth, maybe in 3-5 years? Fast forward for us.
Yeah. Well, ideally, I'm just surrounded with amazing, entrepreneurs and business owners, right? And we're doing like just next level stuff. I'm constantly looking forward to where things are going. Like I'm like really keeping an eye on, AI and machine learning right now, and different efficiencies and things you can do there. One of the things I want to do with my business that I haven't done yet, I've just started kind of talking about it, but it's doing destination events. So like having masterminds and, talking about doing one in Bali, one in Iceland, like doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I love that stuff.
And I just really loved like getting everybody into like this state of change, like excitement and change and transformation. So just looking forward to all of that. Right. And investing in more businesses. That's another thing that I've recently opened up, and working and partnering with people, and having equity stakes in businesses, and really like bringing groups of businesses together that where, the sum is greater than the individual parts. Right. And that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And if this is a word of encouragement for your pursuit of the live events, or the coast kind of like mastermind meetups, the event I was at, the coach that was there, had said every monumental shift forward or jump forward in their business, they run a membership, an online membership. Every shift forward was basically, they could point it back to some type of live in-person mastermind coaching, something, whether it was a 2-day, focus on, online marketing, or it was a 3-day, Tony Robbins kind of rah-rah type thing, or it was a business like roundtable type thing, like you're talking about, it's like, it was the catalyst he basically said, like, you take 6 months of learning or a year of learning or a year of production, and you just smush it together. And then it's like, of course you come out of that, like shot out of a gun, like you're ready to go and do anything and break through walls. Right.
Yeah. I love that.
And so, I love that stuff too.
Yeah.
So
you're hyper focused, I think, because it's like, it also relates, made me think, like, you're talking about how, we fill our time. We do too many things, right? We're so interested in doing something fast that we fill our day with like 15 different things. Yeah. But if we focused on one thing for 3 days, that one thing is going to go so much farther, right? You're going to get further, faster. Yeah. And it's almost like we need to slow down to speed up. Right. And it seems counterintuitive, the things that we need to do, but it's kind of like Chinese handcuffs, like we put like your finger in there, and like the more you pull apart, like you think I need to separate my fingers, so I'm going to separate my fingers. But the more you do that, the tighter they get. And who would think that if you went in, like if you go the opposite direction you feel like you should be going, that it'll just loosen up and free yourself. Right. And there's something there. There's a thought that's been brewing in my brain around this whole idea that within the coming weeks, all of a sudden I'm like, I got it. Yeah.
It's like the Chinese handcuffs. There it is. Right. Yeah. Love it, man. Love it. Super cool. All right. So, what was it? So goldenoctopillar.com/no-more. No-more, right? M-O-R-E.
No more. Yeah.
That's it.
I will have within the next like 48 hours, there'll be a link on my main page, right? But I just that's good. It's just not that. That's like super, super hot off the presses.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. So that, I think that might kind of wrap it up for us today. Anything, cool. Maybe any last parting words you might want to say to the audience today?
I don't know. We've talked about so much, I think in the financial space, for me, the game changer has just been, it's focusing on that passive income, right? It's like, is making your dollars work for you. Don't stick your money in a bank to shrink. Like your little Benjamin Franklins are your employees. Put them to work, right? That will set you free. Right. That is the key to freedom. Right. Because then like you're retired, you live a retired life without retiring. Like, I just think that the outdated mindset of work for 50 years and then you get this time off is not how we should be living. We're giving up our lives. And I don't want people to do that. I don't want to do that. And we live in a time where we don't have to do that anymore. And so I know we're all starting from different places, but we got to start. Right. And if you don't start, you're not going to get there. Yeah.
And in pursuit of the life of freedom, as you would say.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's good. Outstanding. Jeremy, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And awesome. Well, we'll have to do this again, man. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed talking with you. And
likewise.
Best of luck with you and your business. And for those of you listening, again, it is goldenoctopillar.com. And for those of you who are looking for a little bit of guidance, maybe more on the personal side of financial coaching, you can find me at ignitingfinancialfreedom.com. All right, everybody. That will be all for us tonight. And signing off. Cheers.